Time for the Knuckles series episode 4 review. This episode was by far the most bizarre and unique out of all of them. I think it's an episode that people are either going to absolutely love or absolutely hate. I'm a little bit torn, but I think this might be my favorite episode in the series. So even though from last night's events the house has suffered significant damage, it is a beautiful morning at the Whipple house. Everyone's cozy, everyone's drinking coffee, when Wade suddenly gets dragged away by a bounty hunter on a motorcycle. What's a bit surprising and a little bit weird is that Knuckles doesn't actually do anything to save him. He says that Wade needs to learn to rescue himself. I don't usually like it when characters do this, unless they're communicating really well and there is a very good reason. It usually seems out of character and mean. Knuckles does seem to have good intentions with this though. He doesn't quite or completely leave Wade alone. The bounty hunter who dragged Wade away happens to be Jack Sinclair, who used to be Wade's best friend and was on a bowling team with him. Jack puts him in a cage and is taking him back to whoever is collecting the bounty, I guess. The bars give you an electric shock if you touch them, so Wade doesn't really have a way to get out. Now this is where the episode starts to get really trippy and bizarre. Wade hears Knuckles' voice, and I'm not sure if it's in his head, but it sounds like it's coming from the speakers in the cage. Knuckles tells Wade that he needs to bust himself out of there, and he can do that by going to his ancestral homelands, the Great Battleground in the Sky. Every time Knuckles mentioned the Great Battleground in the Sky before, it seemed like he was referring to the afterlife or heaven, like whatever the echidna's version of that is, so that's pretty scary. Wade does get knocked out from the bars and wakes up in what looks like a bowling alley, and there he stands face to face with Chief Pakachamak. Pakachamak tells Wade that he needs to learn where Knuckles' true strength lies so he can become a warrior. This next part is bonkers. I seriously can't believe it. I never would have expected them to do this. I assumed Pakachamak was being sarcastic when he said that they were going to teach Wade this lesson through a low-budget rock opera, but they actually do this. This is one of those ideas that's so crazy and weird unless you see the execution, and I mean I guess it's still crazy and weird, but it makes me want to know what went on in the writer's room. I would love to see the pitch meeting for this. What ensues is a gloriously bad and awful rock opera that tells the story of Knuckles and how he lost his tribe to the owls and then eventually defeated the fire demon to gain the abilities called the Flames of Disaster. The purpose of this story is to show Wade that true strength comes from the heart. It doesn't seem that deep really, but he does gain more confidence after this and is able to defeat Jack Sinclair. But just for examples of how ridiculous this opera gets, Jack Sinclair plays Longclaw the Owl, but he's playing an electric guitar and singing the whole time. Wade plays Knuckles, a giant puppet is the fire demon, and Wade's father, Wade as Knuckles' father, when he dies, is just like a Muppet. There are people in costumes, like really bad costumes or green screen suits, making all the effects happen. The lyrics are often pretty awful too, such as "You freaking suck," and there's one part where the demon stops singing to kind of check Facebook Marketplace. This sounds made up, but it actually happens, and you know what? It's kind of glorious. One thing I definitely noticed though was that the fire demon is Iblis and the Flames of Disaster are a reference to Sonic 06. Or at least that's what I found out when I looked into it. I actually thought he was Black Doom at first and I got really excited, like, does this mean maybe Black Doom will be in Sonic 3? But no, this is Iblis, and I'm not super familiar with Sonic 06, but I know it's kind of an obscure game that's mainly remembered for being bad, so it's impressive that this show made such a direct reference to it. And not just a reference, they actually used the lore and transfer it to Knuckles' story, so I guess Knuckles apparently did defeat Iblis a long time ago, and now he has the ability called the Flames of Disaster, which does appear in this show. So anyways, very cool stuff. The scene where Wade defeats Jack is pretty funny and kind of satisfying, and he drives home on Jack's motorcycle with all the stuff that he won from him. His mom and sister can't believe it, but Knuckles seems to have known that this would happen all along, and he's very proud of Wade. And they ride off into the sunset together on their sick new motorcycle. The hat Knuckles is wearing here is of course a reference to the hat he wore in the Sonic OVA, and I guess this means that Knuckles already knew how to drive a motorcycle? I don't know, I just have a few questions about that, but it doesn't matter, this scene is awesome. This episode was just really unique, and while I wasn't sure exactly how I felt about it at first, I think it really grew on me. I warmed up to it a lot, and it's so bad that it's actually really awesome in like an intentionally goofy sort of way.